Welcome to the South Burlington Development Review Board for Tuesday, June 18th, 2024. I'm Dawn Philibert. I'm the chair of the board, and let me introduce the other board members who are here. Mark Baer, Charlie Johnson, Frank Kochman, Quinn Mann, John Muscatelli, and to my right, our staff, Marla, I always block on your name, Marla Keene, and Marty Gillis. Thank you for being here tonight. This meeting is being recorded. If you have not signed in, are there any people joining us online? Okay. If you're here, please make sure you sign the sign-in sheet at the back to register or document that you are a participant in this hearing. And if you are participating virtually, please document your participation in the chat room. And if you're on a call, please indicate that you're participating by emailing your contact information to mkeene@southburlingtonvt.gov. Okay. All right. Emergency evacuation procedures, item number 1 on the agenda. There, in the event of an emergency, there are, welcome. You were not here, sir, when I just said, make sure you sign in if you want to be documented as a participant. Doors in the back of the auditorium on the left and the right. In the event of an emergency, you would simply exit those doors and turn left or right to be outside of the building. Are there any additions, deletions, or changes in the order of agenda items?
All set.
Okay. Hearing none, moving on to, are there any announcements?
Nope.
You don't want to announce the new member?
I was going to do it under other business.
Oh, all right,
okay.
sorry.
We can do it now. It's great. Yeah, so council last night reappointed board member Frank Kochman. Thank you very much for your continued participation. We're very pleased to have you stay on. And appointed new member Jody Lesko. I know nothing about her other than she is a new board member and she will be joining us at the July 2nd meeting.
Perfect. Good. Thanks. Any other announcements? Any comments and questions from the public that are not related to the agenda? Hearing none, we'll move on to the first project that we are discussing and reviewing tonight. Site plan application SP 2417 and conditional use application CU 2406 of South Burlington Realty Corp. Properties LLC to amend a previously approved plan for an outdoor storage yard. The amendment consists of constructing a 1.02 acre paved parking lot and changing the use to commercial parking facility at 1877 Williston Road. Are there any people who are recused or any disclosures? And are you the only one here, Tim?
Andrea is online.
Okay.
She's our engineer. She will be making the presentation. I'll give you an overview.
Okay, so we have Tim, Mackenzie, and Andrea. What's Andrea's last name?
Andrea Poulos.
Poulos, thank you. Would you raise your right hand, please, both of you? Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury?
I do.
I do.
Thank you. Okay. Do you want to give us like a 3-minute overview, Tim?
Yeah, I can probably even be shorter than that. So we own a storage yard. It was used for many years as a construction storage yard. We still have a few pieces of equipment there, but it is underutilized. When Beta developed their site and Pete's RV lost a lot of their RV parking and storage, we thought it would be an opportunity to get greater utilization out of our lot by putting in a parking lot for RV type storage.
Okay, Thank you.
Yep.
So you know the deal. We're going to review the staff report,
course.
focus on the
Yep.
highlighted comments, and I know you've read it, so you'll be prepared. Thanks. Okay.
So Dawn, this is a little bit
Wait,
different than
why
usual.
am I not seeing any red? I know I
Right.
read this earlier.
So
But...
maybe Marty can introduce
Okay.
how this was done a little bit differently.
Yeah, so we figured there didn't appear to be any issues with the site plan review standards or the conditional use standards beyond like things that could be taken care of with a simple condition of approval. So staff considered that this could move straight ahead to a draft decision as opposed to a traditional staff comment. So that's what we have prepared for you here tonight. There are a couple red comments in the draft findings of fact and decision, mostly related to the floodplain overlay and kind of the impacts proposed and how we can get about permitting that.
Great. Thanks. I do see the red comments now. Okay, comment number 1. I'm going to read it. The board finds that the applicant must clarify whether any dumpsters are proposed at the site. Assuming no dumpsters are proposed, the board finds that this criterion is not applicable.
No dumpsters are proposed.
Thank you, Tim. Okay, comment. Sure. Go ahead, Frank.
I have a question about, does that mean no waste will be produced?
That is our assumption at the time. We view it merely as parking RVs or large vehicles like that.
Okay. All right. Number 2. This speaks to the need to relocate the snow storage area.
Yeah, I'll let Andrea take that.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think we're happy with a condition of approval to relocate snow storage outside of the river corridor overlay. As long as it's approvable, it'll likely be relocated to the western end of the parking lot, so directly across from the entrance.
Which actually makes sense in that I don't envision much snow removal in the wintertime. We assume that folks will park their vehicles and store it for the wintertime, and it would probably be just one sweep through pushing it to the far end.
Yes.
Okay. People aren't shopping in the wintertime, probably.
No, this is merely a parking, seasonal parking.
Yeah.
Is
Okay.
our assumption.
Thanks. Any questions?
I might as well raise it now since
Sure. Go ahead, Frank.
I know that I'm going to get a consensus, and let's either address it or get it out of the way for you folks. I spent about 20 minutes staring at the definition of commercial or private parking this afternoon, and my question, I guess, for Tim is there a principal use with which this lot is associated? Or is it the principal use? It's now going to be a freestanding parking facility, right?
I'd let Andrea handle that if you can.
Yeah, so it would be the principal use, and I had a little bit of back and forth with Marla and Marty about the use of this lot. It truly is just a commercial parking lot. There's no
There is no,
buildings.
in other words, it's not an adjunct to any other use. It is its own thing. It's a parking business, correct?
Parking or storage, however we,
All right.
define that.
Tim, I'm sorry. I know you're just trying to do a commercially useful and good thing here, but I don't think this fits the definition that's been attached to it. I read the definition. I mean, folks can, as would not be for the first time, people can disregard my reading, all right? But as I read the definition, as I've read it repeatedly, I can't eliminate the understanding that it was designed to deal with parking areas that are for the exclusive use of customers or tenants, etc., of a business which is a different principal use than running a parking lot. So that's where I come out. So I'm fundamentally at odds on the proposed use. Now, if there's some other category, I didn't investigate enough to find that out. If there's, for example, it's been it qualified as a construction storage site. There seems to be a gray zone in here between whether this is for quote parking, which you're trying to cram it into in order to make it a commercial parking area, or whether it's simply for another kind of storage. If there's some other category into which it fits, I'm perfectly amenable to that, but I can't live with the suggested definition of what the use is.
Andrea, could you address our original application came in under a different category, I believe.
Yeah, so we were originally describing it as a outdoor vehicle storage, having some bit of trouble fitting it into a specific definition. We had also discussed if it fell under a private provider of a public service, including vehicle storage, which I think Marla was pretty clear that it didn't fall under that category.
So I can provide some background if you guys want, but I'm
Yes.
wondering how other members are feeling about it. You guys okay? You want to go into it?
I think it's probably worth discussing. I mean, if we don't have a category that it neatly fits, then I think it's got to fit into something. I mean, it doesn't appear to be prohibited. So I would think if we don't have a category that specifically says a standalone parking facility, that we would kind of have to make a decision that it fits somewhere.
No, we don't.
My interpretation is this definition that's highlighted on the screen is a parking facility. Parking area owned by a business establishment, South Burlington Realty, or similar use, and made available by the owners, South Burlington Realty, for the exclusive use of clients, customers, who would be. Tim, can you clarify? This is for Pete's RV to store RVs, or for you guys to lease it to, like, private individuals for winter parking? Or a little both?
A little yet to be defined. We were hoping to potentially reach an agreement with someone like Pete's RVs, but can't reach an agreement until we have a facility to provide.
Okay, so in that case, if it were to Pete's RVs, then it would be to lessees or tenants, and otherwise it would be to customers. And all of those things are in the definition.
More likely customers than an all-out lease of the facility.
So by customers, you mean, so I own an RV.
Yeah.
I don't know where to put it in the winter. I lease space in your parking lot.
Yes.
I see. Thanks. Frank, I know you started to say something.
Yeah, the problem with reading it that way is is the last sentence of the definition. Such commercial or private parking may or may not exist on the same lot as the principal use.
What's the
To
issue?
me, that excludes a parking facility as the principal use. In other words, very strong, for me, the inescapable implication of the definition is that the private parking is, first of all, not public parking. It is an adjunct, is ancillary to another use, an apartment building, a department store, any other business that can operate in the zone. This would be the principal use, and this is an adjunct. What is permitted is an adjunct to that use, not the operation of a commercial parking area. I don't think we have to debate it to death. I mean, we can wait till deliberation if you want to kick it around some more and decide for yourselves. It wouldn't be the first time I've departed from staff reading, and ultimately the majority of this board has to say so. And I've said it, I don't need to beat it to death here.
What do other board members think?
I'm pretty comfortable with it as applied. I mean, I think I can't get into the legal nuances, which Frank definitely does. But
Right.
from my standing of an architect who would come before a board to present, I would read this as clear cut. It's, you know, a commercial or private parking facility. You know, if it was a parking lot for a business, then they wouldn't call it a parking facility. It would just be the parking lot to support a business on the site. I think this is a pretty clear cut case of the lot can be a standalone commercial lot. It's there for the purpose of renting out space, leasing space. I think that it's pretty clear to me.
Any other comments? Pardon me. Okay. Shall we move on and deal with that in deliberation? Okay. The next comment. The board finds that the applicant must revise the site plan to alter the location of the proposed access drive. So, pardon me, the entirety of that drive is removed from within the revised boundary of the floodplain overlay district zone A as a condition of approval. What are your thoughts about that, Tim and Andrew?
Yeah, so we certainly will accept that condition of approval. Our plan is to move that entrance drive more towards the center where the existing drive comes off. So just, yeah, shift it to the left there. So we are fully outside of the floodplain overlay district.
Isn't the floodplain, however, to the left? I'm just looking at the firm map right now, right? And it has the line that's being called out as the edge of the floodplain is the outer boundary. So the parking lot's completely within the floodplain zone A.
Yeah, so the opposite. The parking lot is completely, other than the drive, outside of the floodplain overlay. The floodplain elevation is 301.3, so everything above 301.3 would be outside.
So
We do
where'd you
have
get
colored-
the base elevation from?
Yeah, so we did have a letter of map revision from FEMA, which
Okay.
lists the base flood elevation. There is also an exhibit that colors the area that is outside the floodplain. I can get you the PDF page of the packet. It's towards the end. Yes, that one. Yeah, so everything in purple is outside of the floodplain.
Yeah, it's okay. That's fine. It's just the opposite of what the D firm.
Any other questions? Pardon me. The next comment relates to the need for details of the fence.
Yes, again, we're happy to take a condition of approval to provide a compliant fence detail.
Yeah, likely to be a standard chain link fence.
Okay, thank you.
If we were this far down, I'd like to back up to another point that
Sure.
wasn't raised in red. If it's a parking facility, then I think it's unlike what the draft decision says. I think it has to comply with the dimensional and landscaping requirements of a parking lot. I don't see how you get around that. Either it is or it isn't for parking. In fact, the introductory discussion of what the board got, calls it a parking lot, and then when it gets to the point of complying with the requirements of a parking lot, it says it's not a parking lot.
So you're talking about the need for shade trees and
Yes, exactly. And keeping in mind, now, I don't think this is a trivial objection. I mean, we're talking about, I assume this is now an unpaved, permeable surface. Is that right?
Yeah. If the principal user was one of our sister companies, like Vermont Self Storage, does that change the dynamics?
I don't know. I have to confess, Tim, I only stared at the definition. I didn't canvass the whole range of possible uses. I'm just asking for the moment whether right now we're talking about 1.2 acres of permeable surface that you're about to turn into impermeable surface. That's one way to describe what's happening, correct?
Yeah, I would say that the lot has been used for storage. There is gravel on the lot. There is also some vegetation growing up through the gravel, so it's kind of a mixed surface.
All right, but
As
now
an
it's,
engineer, I wouldn't describe it as permeable. It's hard old clay pan from a riverbed, covered in gravel that's been used for storage on and off.
Yeah,
all right,
for
but
about
now it's
40
going
years.
to be, you know, over an acre of paved surface. You proposed lines on it. Staff, trying to accommodate you, said, well, none of that really applies because it's not a parking lot, but I think it is.
Sure, I
Okay.
guess the implications of that would be parking lot standards. Like off the top of my head, you have to have one shade tree along the perimeter of the lot for every 5 spaces provided, and then 10% of the interior of the parking lot needs to be landscaped islands, which currently aren't factored into your design. So that would be one implication of that interpretation. Yeah.
So, where do we go from here, Marla and Marty? If we're going to deal with this in deliberation,
I
can
mean,
we?
I don't want to put them on the spot. We can deal with it in
Okay.
deliberation, you know.
All
Is
right.
there any particular urgency of getting this done in the next, you know, imminently?
No, we'd like to have it for the winter season.
I
It
understand.
needs to
All
be
right.
constructed.
But if you got delayed to the next meeting, you could live with that, right?
You know, not our first choice, but of course we would deal with it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
that's my suggestion, unless people just, again,
All right.
you
We'll
know, the
deal with that.
majority can do it at once.
Yeah.
It
All
doesn't
right.
necessarily have to be deferential. You know?
So, moving on to the draft decision, we come to the same issue around snow storage and some other issues we've already dealt with.
Yeah, those are just red because they would be subject to change if the previous red comment had been subject to
Okay.
change. They're just conditions of approval associated with earlier comments.
So I think we're good.
Yeah.
Actually, let me ask you a question. Let's suppose that the board agreed with me and said, no, this is a parking lot. Can you do one shade tree for every 5 spaces? And can you do 10% of, what do we need, an island? Can you make the landscaping adjustments that the regulation would call for if it's concluded that it's a parking lot?
I don't know if I can answer that question on the fly without some engineering. I think it would be very difficult.
But without it, we're looking at, as on the practical level for the board to focus on it, we're looking at 1.2 acres of either blacktop, I don't know what your surface is, but blacktop or concrete or something, right? With nothing to break it up except RVs.
So one way the board has dealt with a similar facility in the past is they allowed the applicant to have a couple relatively large landscape islands as opposed to, small parking space size landscape islands. And that sort of limited the amount of space that was, going to result in people's vehicles having tree stuff dropped on them.
Well, I have my issues with what the board has, sometimes with what the board has done in the past, but it would be helpful to know, it would be helpful maybe for the board to understand what the practical possibilities and practical limitations are.
Could you pull the microphone a little bit
I'm
closer
sorry,
to
I beg your pardon. Is that better?
Yes, much.
It would be maybe helpful for the staff and thus ultimately the board to have some suggestion from you folks of what would be feasible from a landscaping standpoint, having in mind what the regulations say. On the hypothetical that it's a parking lot, which the board hasn't determined yet.
I guess I would just jump in here and say, if I understand it correctly, Frank, it's a little bit of a have your cake and eat it too situation where we're calling it a parking lot, but then not applying the parking lot landscaping standards. The alternative is that we call it an outdoor storage yard, there would be no landscaping standards associated with that. But if we call it an outdoor storage yard, then it has to be pertinent to a primary use, and we'd be changing kind of how we classify it. So
I didn't, I didn't follow that. If it's a commercial or private parking facility, then it requires the landscaping, in my opinion.
understood, yeah.
Okay.
We could also determine that it's not, maybe as you said, it doesn't fit the definition of a commercial or public landscape or parking facility, and then therefore, if it fit under a different use, like outdoor storage or something.
If it fits under a different use, that'd be great.
Yeah, the
I
problem with
really-
outdoor storage is it's allowed, it would only be allowed if it's pertinent to another use. And so since it's not pertinent to anything, then it doesn't work.
Well, I think that's true for the parking too, but never mind,
Don't we,
there's
aren't we
disagreement
currently
on
approved for a storage yard? I mean, don't we have a active permit? We've left equipment on the lot for
Right.
that.
I think it's a contractor yard, which is different than outdoor storage.
But that's the question, isn't it?
So staff felt that this commercial public parking facility was the best fit. I think Frank has brought up a good point of if you're going to call it parking, then it needs to meet the parking lot standards. I'm reluctant to show this, but here I've drawn a little picture of what I believe represents 10% of the parking area because I counted spaces. I said there's 24, so I did 2.4 spaces.
Is that the green?
The green. So, I mean, that can be broken up in a bunch of different ways.
I mean, right now you guys are getting no mileage, essentially little or no mileage, commercial mileage out of it, right? So reducing the number of RVs you could accommodate is simply,
Yeah.
a profit reduction of some sort, not a prohibition or something that makes it not worthwhile. I mean, that's a business decision. I don't want
And not to mention an investment by the applicant of the islands and the trees and
So we're not talking mom and pop here.
I know. Any other questions or comments before we move on?
I guess I just want to make a few comments before you guys go to deliberation. I think my biggest concern with interior islands is going to be the movement of large vehicles within the interior of the lot. So I think it's not really losing 10% of the parking when we're thinking about double stacking large RVs in this lot. So there's probably more to come there. I guess I would stress with the definition of a commercial parking facility that last sentence doesn't, I mean, the definition doesn't say that this is an accessory use or that there needs to be a principal use. It just says if there is a principal use, it can maybe on the same lot or maybe on a separate lot. So I would hope that we can keep the commercial or private parking facility as the use definition. And then I guess I wonder if it's a parking area, is that the same as a parking lot? We would be happy to and may consider not striping the property. I don't know if that makes any difference to the board's decision or comments.
Okay, I guess we're going to have to deliberate on this.
I
So,
have a question.
sure,
Do we
Mike.
deliberate if the ultimate determination is that it's not an outdoor storage yard, that it's a commercial parking facility, and if it's a commercial parking facility, that they have to meet the standards of a parking lot with 10%, green space. If we close it, we can't close it and then make that decision, or can we give clear enough direction?
You can have a mid-meeting deliberation. Like you can conclude it for the evening, continue it, have a deliberation and then provide some
Right.
feedback.
That's what I assumed.
And
we
if
did.
during deliberation, you can give me some feedback to tell them.
Okay, so we're not closing the hearing.
Right. It wouldn't be
I don't
closed to
think so.
have a deliberation. It would
Okay,
just be a
that's what I was.
mid-meeting deliberation.
Okay.
Mid-hearing deliberation, not mid-meeting.
Okay. So let's take a pause and ask if there's any public comment. Okay, any here? No. All right, good, thanks. Okay, I would entertain a motion to continue this hearing to July 2nd.
I'll make a motion to continue this hearing to July 2nd.
Okay,
Second.
thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
All right.
Right.
Oppose? No? Okay, we'll see you back here on July 2nd.
Thank you.
Make sure you wear red, white, and blue. All right,
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay.
Depending on when y'all are done tonight, if you want to talk about it after the meeting
Mhm.
and provide them some feedback, I can reach out to Andrea tomorrow
Okay.
and then they can get to work if they have work to do.
Okay. Let's see how the evening unfolds.
Excellent.
Thank you. Good evening. So, our next project is, pardon me, continued site plan application SP 2420 of Burlington School District to amend a previously approved plan for an airport complex. The amendment consists of renovating an existing hangar for the use of Burlington School District's Aviation Technical Center, including reconfiguration of the parking and site circulation at 200 Davinci Drive. Any recusals or disclosures? Hearing none, who is here for the applicant?
Marty Spalding, I'm the owner's rep from PCI Capital Project Consulting. Thank you.
It would help, just as I failed to do before, if you speak directly into the mic. The acoustics are terrible here.
And Jackie DeJess with EIV Technical Services. We also have someone participating remotely. Adam, if you want to introduce yourself too.
Good evening, Adam Frasino with McFarland Johnson, the engineer of record for the project.
What is your first name again, please?
Adam?
Adam, thanks. Okay, thank you. All right, I'm going to swear you in. Right hands up, please. Do you solemnly swear the information you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury?
Yes.
I do, yep.
Thank you. Okay. Let's, you know the drill. We're going to go through the staff report. You were just with us 2 weeks ago. So let's just pick up and dive in. Comment number 1, staff recommends the board direct the applicant to relocate the crosswalk and walkway to a location that will provide safe pedestrian movement.
Following the staff comments, we spoke with Marla, and Marla confirmed that this location was acceptable.
Can you speak up, please, and pull the
Sure.
mic?
So that's not entirely true. What I meant to confirm, and I apologize if I was confusing, is that the capital projects director indicated that they were okay with the crosswalk location, but did still have concerns about the walkway. So in the image that's on the screen, the green was the part that was of concern, whereas the pink was okay. And I think that the stormwater section, I'm sorry to jump around, had some comments about the walkway being curbed or not curbed as well. So hopefully those comments are complementary to each other.
And the stormwater comments are further down in the staff comments. Did you want to jump down there? We did have some updates, and we met with Marisa today.
Just go in order.
I think we should just go through and then we can always come back if we need to. comment number 2 is regarding the turning movement plan.
Do we have a conclusion to the first comment?
Well, the thought was we'd move ahead and come back if we need to, but if you have any questions, dive in. Okay, you've read, pardon me, you've read number 2. What are your thoughts about the turning movement plan?
We've made some updates and we have the turning movement plan that we can show. Adam is joining remotely so that he can share some of that
Okay.
information. If that is,
Jackie, is this all stuff that you sent to me at 4:30 today?
yeah,
Okay,
it was
that's
super
fine. I
last
just wanted to
minute.
make sure that we have it, because if anything that he shows, we need to also have.
It's exactly what we
Okay,
sent to you
perfect. Great.
at the very last minute.
Are we good with this Zoom meeting? Like, let me just check. Sorry. Who is here? Any? Yeah, you're good. Go ahead. Sometimes we get members of the public who are maybe not here for the best reasons, and I want to make sure we didn't want to open screen sharing to just the general public unless.
So Adam, you're going to share something with us?
He has the turning movement plans.
You're muted, Adam.
Sorry about that. Yep.
All right, I'm unlocking sharing, so go ahead now.
Okay. Yeah, I was about to say it was not letting me share, but now it is, I think. Okay, can you see my screen?
No.
Oh, one more button I had to click. Sorry. Now can you see my screen?
No.
But it looks like it's loading. It's just a
Okay.
second.
There we go.
Okay, so we ran a bunch of different truck turning templates for the different vehicles that will be accessing, I'll just say this whole area in general. We can go over the other vehicles, but this is the one that's the most critical. This is the WB67, it's referred to as in the AASHTO world, but it is essentially your typical 53-foot long trailer for a tractor trailer. And those are the size trucks that will be accessing Beta's loading dock. And so you can see the turn template. I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with turn templates, but I can zoom in now that you kind of get an understanding of where we're talking. But to get those trucks into the loading dock, they obviously have to turn in and then pull forward as far as they can to then back into one of the, I believe they have four official slots. It may only be 3, but 3 or 4 of those loading areas. And in order to do so, that is the reason why the of this access driveway is as wide as it is today. We're not widening it any, but we're just showing that we can't really narrow it and being able to use it as they are today.
Adam, this comment was about the proposed pavement, not the existing pavement. So the area that's gray on your plan that's shown
Sure.
right now?
Okay. We can jump out of this driveway. Egypt to the bus
Awesome.
turn templates. Going in each direction. And relatively similar as far as their vehicle tracks, but this is the bus is coming in from this direction, turning in, and then queuing along here, and then continuing to pull out and going around. And then if we do the other direction, it actually doesn't look that much different, but this is with the buses pulling in and traveling in a clockwise direction, I'll call it, stopping here to load and unload, and then pulling out. And then this gray shaded area here is what is existing pavement, and we are just closing a piece to make it so that the buses can utilize that space and not have just a little sliver of I guess lawn area that would probably get destroyed over time.
So the dark gray is existing pavement?
Nope, the dark gray is our proposed. And the
I'm
light
sorry,
gray,
is what? What is
the
the
dark gray
gray?
is is our proposed pavement. I'm trying to
Okay.
zoom in here a little bit so you guys can get a little better
Oh, it's
vantage point of this. Go one more.
hangar.
So dark gray, it's kind of confusing because it is slightly lighter gray. It's not coming up that well on the screen, but this area here, and I can draw on here, is existing, but we are resurfacing it just to freshen it up.
Because you're going to maintain that access to the hangar.
There's a gate, airfield gate.
Yeah, and
Yes,
you're gonna
there's a
maintain
gate there.
that.
That's one of the main security gates to get into the airport for GA traffic. So that red area is there today. It exists today, and then there's a sliding gate and a man gate right here to get into the airport. It's a security gate.
So then that's a driveway, and that can't be a cross. That would have to have a crosswalk. It can't be just a sidewalk across that, right? Or I guess they're doing striped sidewalks. Is that what we're doing?
It's just going to be a striped walkway.
There's a gate. So
Any other questions? Okay. Do you have any questions? Nope. Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to number 3. Staff recommends the board direct the applicant to raise the sidewalk so that it is protected from the drive aisle by curbing or in another manner.
So Adam, did you want to go back to that turning movement that shows the WV67, the beta trucks?
Jackie, you're gonna need to speak up.
Sorry, I'll speak louder. Sorry.
And directly into the mic would help.
Is that good?
Yeah.
So Adam, do you want to walk through this diagram and just show why it would not be able to be raised?
So in order for the trucks to enter the loading dock area, I'll call it, that's out there today, they have this kind of truck staging area in front of the loading docks. And the trucks need to pull forward far enough to be able to get the back 4 tires, their dual axles, to be able to, because then they cut it as hard as they can to come straight back in, especially if there's multiple trucks already in the other loading docks. So they use up pretty much all this space down here coming over the crosswalk, but then also in various spots wherever they want to back into the loading docks. Also, and I could pull it up, but also the school district will, on I'll call it a few times a year basis, they will also have trucks that are going to want to pull forward in a similar manner and then back down what we're calling it the alleyway, but backing down so they can park right here to unload into these 3 overhead doors. So they too need to utilize all the space possible out there. So adding a raised or a curb here would impact that that truck turning movement that's currently utilizing that pavement surface today.
Isn't it true that, you correct me if I'm wrong, but that the rationale put forward for the lack of curbing had nothing to do with trucks, but was entirely about drainage the last time you were here?
Well, it's both. It's a combination, but you know,
No, I'm just want to be historically accurate.
Yeah,
This is a
yeah.
new rationale as far as this board is concerned. All we
Sure,
heard before was drainage, to which Marla has proposed a perfectly reasonable modification. So I don't know. Has someone done an analysis? I'm not an engineer, but there's a way to calculate turning radiuses. Has all that been done with any
Yeah,
precision?
that's what this program is. It takes the turning radiuses for the vehicles and you physically drive them in the program and get it to the location that they need to go. And it utilizes their maximum turning radius, their ability to turn both forward and reverse.
So help me out a little bit because of my struggle with diagrams. Where is can you point somehow to the sidewalk area on which, or to the walking area on which they'll be impinging when they back up? Can you outline an area for me with the arrow?
This sidewalk, Yeah, this sidewalk area, I can actually draw it into, 'cause sometimes that's helpful because it's hard to see the cursor. Specific truck, this walk area, as well as the area up here is being
All right. So
impacted.
you,
And it's an arrow into this slot as you need to get into the other ones in this area.
so between the two red blocks, you have an area where A, the trucks backing up is not an issue, and B, according to Marla, there is no drainage problem. Is that fair?
That's fair to a certain degree. We do have, I can show the drainage plan with some arrows that we put on here for the sake of this meeting. But that is a fair statement that you could technically raise the sidewalk in this area or the walkway in this area. I'm not sure that's desirable. You'd have to then have ADA ramps on both sides to go up and then back down. So I don't, we don't typically design it in that manner to just raise a 30-foot section of sidewalk just because.
Can I interject for a moment? So I just want to point out, Adam, on your screen that there is more sidewalk than the north page up to page down sidewalk. There's also the one that connects the parking area to that sidewalk.
Yeah.
And then I just wanted to point out that the point of having a curbed sidewalk is so that vehicles don't run it over and hit the pedestrians that are walking on it. Okay, that was just a little redirect. Carry on.
So are you saying that you can't design the receiving area and the loading docks in such a way so that they don't run over the walking area? That can't be done? That's physically impossible?
That's existing, and it's not the school district's property. That's Beta's property.
I'm sorry, I can't understand you.
What you're referring to is existing condition for Beta's building, not the school district's building. The receiving air, the receiving loading dock area.
Can we go back to the other plan?
Yeah, can we go back to the turning radius plan that shows the trucks?
So the impingement upon the northern, or I don't know, yeah, it's northern.
Plan northwest.
Plan north, thank you. Sidewalk, right? Looks like it's unavoidable. You can't relocate the sidewalk and not be within that turning radius. The southern one, however, it looks like you're trying to make use of existing pavement and putting a walk along there, and that could be shifted and eliminated from being impinged upon. I understand that may require more development of impervious spaces, right? But it could be shifted to land left.
That's true, but I would, you're saying we could put it over here and have it run something like that.
Correct.
My preference is with students and doing lots of different student design related to schools, whether it's colleges or high schools, you always want to protect them with the point of direct contact between the 2 points, because they're going to walk it regardless of whether it's striped or not. So we would want to have it striped for safety purposes. So that is an option. We absolutely could slide it over and put it over here. But then the students will just walk that are trying to get to the sidewalk, and they're just going to walk across here anyway. So I'd rather have it be striped with yellow crosswalk paint. But we can absolutely move it. Our preference would be to keep it over here, but if that's the board's preference, we can slide it over. That's not an issue.
Marla? What do you think of that solution?
I think that is a perfect example of a case where the board should weigh two good arguments against one another. You know, the purpose of a sidewalk is to separate the pedestrians from the vehicular movement. If Adam is testifying that he doesn't think that the most well-designed sidewalk will actually be used, then the board should decide which is more important to them.
Do we have
That's why
discretion?
I'm glad I don't have to make these decisions.
So it comes down to safety versus design.
Well, they would argue safety versus safety, I think.
Yeah. Human behavior
But-
versus good design.
Okay.
Let me ask a
Correct.
more
That's a good way to
fundamental
put it.
question. Do we have discretion to vary the curbing requirement?
In a site plan, the board has authority to modify dimensional standards.
This is not dimensional.
Is there any authority
is
for
not
non-dimensional
dimensional.
standards?
Saying they want to do 8-foot walk, but they want to do 4, I think.
Is the
Right.
curb requirement is that officially a requirement that all pavement has to be curbed? I don't
So the
believe it
standard
is.
that's on, right before staff comment number 3, pedestrian safety insofar as practicable, pedestrian and bicycle circulation shall be separated from motor vehicle circulation. Safe and convenient pedestrian circulation, including appropriate sidewalks, shall be provided on the site and its approaches. The pedestrian circulation shall be designed to minimize adverse effects of vehicular traffic on sidewalks and recreation paths. So it does not specifically say curbing, and I think the reason for that is because sometimes the better solution is physical separation.
Also, the clause insofar as practicable. Well, it seems like somebody would have to decide what's practicable, and I think that lands on us.
Sorry.
So I guess we need to deal with this in deliberation and
Well, so
One
go ahead.
question I have is on the section of sidewalk that's on Plan Northwest right now, where up by the building, that's sort of at the extent of the truck coming in and then backing into the loading bay. It's basically what you're saying is if the truck stopped 5 feet short, it wouldn't be able to make the turn into the loading bay.
Correct. They can't swing their actual. They can make multiple maneuvers where they back forward and back, but typically you don't design for multiple.
Okay.
I don't know how else to describe it. Multiple.
So is that a fence?
So-
Is that a fence line right now along the left of the striped area?
Yes.
So the
Correct.
truck is literally coming up and it's going to bump the fence and then back up.
They make the fence is that's their kind of their landmark. So if there's a sidewalk there, they'd probably get as close as they could to the sidewalk as well, if it was raised. I just, per the modeling, it would be very tricky for them to make that maneuver if the loading docks are occupied. And they have to be pretty precise to get into their slot. So
okay.
and just to be clear, it would force some additional drainage to it does work well out there today, and then adding a 6 inches of curbing is going to cause some ponding, but sitting here as an engineer, I can't honestly say we couldn't figure that out and try to resolve that issue with potentially adding some drainage features and things like that. That's why we shifted kind of this approach. The stormwater is still a concern on our end to have to design around it, but we could probably find a solution to that.
Let me ask for the green sidewalk that you drew in there. What if you just you've got a small segment of green down Plan South. If you just paralleled the red section, essentially moved that crosswalk, because I agree with your point that the kids are probably going to take the straightest path. But if you just move that over outside the turning radius, moved your path over a little bit,
Yep.
and then went straight up, then I think we get back to the question of, well, can that all be raised all the way up? And then you're going to have to lower it to get to the building. So maybe you lower the sidewalk down where the trucks would come in and have your one ramp.
Still can't be raised across.
So I think the point is being missed though,
can't
that this is an active
Gonna drop
roadway.
down.
It can't be a curb here.
That's
The
a
buses
vehicle.
are going to be turning here, and
Wait, guys, let's listen to him and then we can talk amongst ourselves.
sure. Okay.
No, Adam, keep going. We
Oh,
want to
okay.
listen to you.
Okay, sorry. I thought I was the one interrupting. I'm just going to change colors here quick so we can easily talk. Okay, so if you did the blue scenario, that would still have to be flush because large trucks still make this turn and go straight right into the airport. And Larry, who's present here today from airport operations, can attest to this, but I mean, this is one of their locations, their gates where they bring in larger trucks and commercial equipment and vehicles. So we could slide this over, yes, and we could provide some curbing, but a very short stretch of curbing. It would be in this region right here, maybe in a 15 to 20 foot stretch. It actually already is curbed, and then the curb curls around and then dives down and transitions. So we could add a little bit more curb, but the rest of this blue section, like, that has to remain flush because vehicles drive over it today.
What about a design? You've seen it all the times for cars. I don't know if it impacts trucks. If you've got a raised area where you have a sidewalk where you have essentially a speed hump.
Yeah, like a tabletop crosswalk.
Where you've got something like that, where you can at least protect the sidewalk a little bit and they just have to drive over it. It seems like they could be going slow enough. They'd probably be able to take that no problem.
I mean, they can be designed. I don't think that's a very desirable for the airport or the school district having their buses driving over it and then those heavy vehicles. But I don't know what the thoughts are from the other individuals from our team, but I wouldn't recommend that.
Would that impact stormwater?
I can't understand.
Would that impact stormwater runoff? I don't know if anything's sheeting down that drive.
It is. It would not totally. Most of that stormwater already comes into the drainage structures that are in this area.
Let me ask a different question, come at it a different way, maybe. I mean, how frequently are the trucks coming in a continuous stream? I mean, how much of the day is taken up by? How much time is taken up by the trucks coming in and out?
I don't know a definitive answer to that, but it's not, Beta is not a shipping company. These are just deliveries that come, I would assume, on at the most a daily basis. I don't know if Larry has any insight as to their operations. I don't, other than the times I've been out there has been no.
I don't have exact numbers, but it would be limited. Limited number.
Okay, so taking limited to be, tell me whether limited is consistent with another possible idea, which is that curbing is not the only kind of barrier we could live with. We could live with some kind of, I don't know, temporary barrier that the truck driver gets out and moves out of the way when he wants to turn.
Can I ask another question? Who are we concerned about for this sidewalk from Davinci Drive up along who's anticipated to be using this? Because I thought the testimony was that the students get dropped off with a school bus.
That is accurate.
And where do they get dropped off with the school bus?
Adam showed the turning radius where the buses would be queuing, which is right near the new green sidewalk.
Okay, so they would get dropped off there, then they would walk along up to there.
That's correct. Yeah.
Right, and then there's the parking spaces to the left of the screen.
That's correct.
So
That people who drive to either students or adult programming walk from there along the dark gray driveway into the building.
It's not so much the pedestrians coming from Davinci Drive up, heading and crossing over the gray, and then going up to the building. It's the people parking in the parking lot and the kids getting dropped off at the school bus and then walking up.
So what would be the issue with a temporary barrier that the driver could either decide relatively easily to move out of the way or decide he can maneuver notwithstanding the existence of, what a terrible sentence. Did you follow what I'm saying? Marlon? I mean, a temporary barrier would do the job.
I'm trying to visualize what you're thinking for.
I'm sorry.
Say that again, Adam, please.
I was just trying to visualize what you're thinking of for a temporary barrier. Did you have something specific in mind? Or like an example you could think of, like an event or something? Are we talking about, I call them crowd control fencing? I don't know if that's what you're talking about.
I don't know. What comes to mind is maybe an 18-inch high metal pipes supported at both ends, or a couple of them, or two that open up wide enough to let a truck work its way through. I'd leave the design to some, but what I'm asking Marla is that does that satisfy? Is that a satisfactory? Is that? Oh, I think it's permissible, but I just confirm it's a permissible alternative to the curbing per se. Yes.
So I have never seen, there's a few ways to protect pedestrians on a walkway, right? It's physical separation, like green space, a curb, or bollards. There's lots of different forms bollards could take. There's removable bollards, non-removable bollards. I suppose there's also like Jersey barriers. I wouldn't recommend the board specifying something that is not a normal practice because then there's some liability for the city if that doesn't work out.
Well, how
I would
hard?
instead put it on them to say, this is the objective that we want you to meet, propose something.
So, a thing that is by its nature movable. Secondly, that can be moved in the discretion of the truck driver.
Can you
And
step
third,
back even farther? Like, what is the objective? To protect the red area from trucks?
the objective is to meet the letter of the regulation. That's my objective right
Okay.
as we speak.
Can we go in between those two objectives, in between the very specific and the very broad? Like, are you talking about the red area at the top of the page?
Yes. In other words, curbing where you can put curbing, and something temporary. Temporary bollards, we'll call them for the sake of discussion. I don't know what they are yet. That can be, that add 5 minutes of time to the truck driver's work, and yet stand there as a barrier. And if he thinks he can make the turn, he doesn't have to spend the 5 minutes. He or she.
Let's let Larry speak.
Yeah, sure. I'm just a little bit confused on what you're trying to protect here because we can, if you're talking about the northwest page.
I'm talking about where the red is.
Yeah, the reds. If it makes you feel, if it works, we could move the fence further to the west a little bit if we need more space there.
Well, why don't we do that? Just run the curb all the way through. Just curb it all the way up.
Well, we have drainage. There is drainage issues that I'd have to defer to Adam on that.
But I'm deferring to Marla, who says you don't.
Well, so we were looking, staff looked at the east-west segment for drainage. We didn't look at the north-south piece of it for drainage.
Mark.
I think I got to say, I think that I don't want to say belabored this point, but this is something we've done in the city on residential streets where we have the asphalt and the sidewalk are sort of like at level, and the only differentiation is the sidewalk is concrete and asphalt. And that's in a residential area where you got kids playing, biking, parking, vehicles moving a lot more frequently probably than here. I just got to say, I think I'm pretty comfortable if we shift the fence away and just stripe it. And, I think we can deal with this without having to get into some elaborate curbing, bollards, that type of thing. I mean, we're talking about the occasional loading truck, and we're talking about high school students, I'm not diminishing that, but I'm just saying I think this is kind of a thing where, you have operational errors probably pretty slim to none.
Also, I'd like to add, if you're looking page south with that red, that's going to be, you're talking about limited truck movement backing in.
Right, that's what I mean.
Limited people crossing.
You're talking about that one little bit where the nose is going to be there.
When the students are coming in here and walking along the fence the entire way.
Right.
So
I'm not really concerned about this, and I think we might be overthinking the situation.
All right. Are we ready to move on then?
I personally am.
Do people feel like we can move on?
So the conclusion is you'd like them to propose something different. And you've talked about a lot of different possibilities, and you'd like them to show something better.
Well, I'd like the fence shifted over and just striping that's not in conflict with the truck.
All right, and
that's what Mark wants.
That's what I want.
And I may agree with that if the regulations permit it. That's the question. In other words, as I read the comments, a barrier, a raised area, some sort of obstacle was required. And if that's wrong, I'm happy to see to Mark's point of view. Otherwise, I'm not.
Is that from commercial to pedestrian? Because how do we do it in O'Brien with the street and the sidewalk integrated with no curb?
Yeah, Mark,
Possibly
as
illegally.
you noted it, it was concrete versus, it's one of the streets you live on.
Yes.
Yep.
Concrete sidewalk flush with asphalt pavement.
Mm-hmm. So it's just a visual
Curb there,
differentiation.
isn't there?
I think the curb is
There's no
flush
curb.
or like nearly flush.
It's flush.
Is
There's
it really?
Yep.
Okay.
But it is. It's this concrete sidewalk with a integrated curb,
Right.
and then the material changes. So
Right.
it's a
That's-
permanent
how is that
visual
different than
barrier as
striping?
opposed to paint that washes off
Okay.
or
I
gets plowed off or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, Adam, are you specifying like a reflective paint or something like that? Or are you just planning?
Yeah,
on white?
it's typical. It's typical crosswalk paint, DOT grade. So it's not. We're specifying DOT high reflective paint.
Okay. Are we ready to move on?
Can I ask one clarifying question? If the sidewalk was flush with the asphalt, but it was concrete versus pavement, the trucks we wouldn't need to move the fence for the trucks to make the turning radiuses, correct? It'd be no different than painting the
Hard time
sidewalk.
hearing you. Can you move the mic?
Yep, sorry about
closer?
that. Adam, did you hear me?
I heard you. Yeah. Yep. Go ahead, Marty. Do you want me to repeat what you said?
My question was more for you. If we were to, rather than paint a crosswalk in that area, but instead we took the board's recommendation to add a flush sidewalk, concrete sidewalk without any curb, we wouldn't have to position the fence for the trucks to make the turning radiuses.
I would recommend that approach as opposed to putting up some sort of temporary barriers that can move or anything like that. If we can just get a permanent delineation, I would think that's better for all parties, but that's my opinion.
I think what we were looking for was to get the walkway out of the turning radius of the trucks to remove the conflict. And then concrete or striping, something that works. But the concern is just the trucks needing to pull onto the walkway in order to do that. And you get a bad combination of an inattentive truck driver and an inattentive pedestrian, and you have a problem. I kind of almost like to see some sort of little fixed barrier in that area just to make sure the truck drivers don't hit it and therefore impinge on the sidewalk. But I may be alone on that one. But that was the idea of if you bump the fence out a little bit, it allows you to eliminate the conflict.
Understood. That's why I was asking the clarifying question. Thank you.
Okay. Any more discussion before we move on?
I guess I would just add real quick, in my view of what everyone said so far, it would appear that you would still need curbing or some type of barrier if you moved it 4 feet in, because the truck drivers would just take the extra 4 feet to make their turn back easier. There's no way to say like these last 4 feet are for pedestrian only, that the truck drivers just want to take. And our priority here is the safety of the students. So that's kind of my understanding. So I would think that a curb or some type of barrier would be. That's what I'm hearing people say.
Right. And in that area where you expect the trucks to conflict, that's what I was thinking, putting bollards or jersey barrier or something in there just so the trucks are going to have to damage the drivers are going to have to damage their trucks in order to impinge on the walkway. Do you need to do that all the way down? I don't think so. But in that area where you're going to have very close contact between the pedestrians and the trucks, I think it would be a wise precaution.
Well, I would just settle for if you imagine moving the fence to the left, from the view I'm looking at now, it's to the left. Then if you just had the curbing, if you moved it 4 feet to the left and put in the curbing, your problem is solved, right? You don't need bollards, you don't need fences. You've accommodated the turning radius and you've met the letter of the reg. seems like the most desirable solution unless there's some impediment to moving that sidewalk in. It doesn't have to all move, it just has to move in the section we're concerned about. You can do like a, 20-degree turn or whatever that would take. Adam, you would have a better eye for that than I would.
The only impediment I see is that there are site light poles up there now.
There's what?
There's site light poles that were installed as part of the beta project to light this area. So we'd have to avoid those if we move to the left, page left.
Okay, I'm feeling like we really need to move on. All right.
So they're going to work on it.
They're going to work on it.
Great.
All right. The next comment is about decreasing the parking area and increasing the landscaping area. And we need a figure to support that, to demonstrate that.
We have increased the landscaping area and we updated LL02, the lighting and landscape plan, and Adam just brought that up. And I believe the new landscaping areas are highlighted and we meet the 10% requirements.
The red areas are the landscaping areas now. And that is the 10% of the parking area, the total parking area, existing and proposed.
So have you decreased the parking area?
No, we just increased the landscaping area.
Okay.
Previously, this was not landscaped and this was not landscaped.
Okay. Board? Good? Okay, thank you. Next question is about the curbing. Here we go again. This recommendation is supported by the comments of the city stormwater section below.
Concrete curbing has been added to the parking lot in areas where it will not impact the drainage paths. Also, the proposed stone line channel has been extended to better protect and define the drainage flow paths. And Adam is bringing that plan sheet up. SP01 and GR01 both have been updated, which are two different plan sheets.
So just to give a visual of what Jackie just read, this is SP01. We added curbing along here and then around this landscaping area. And then we did channel lining all along this area because it will see a good amount of runoff from both the apron and the existing. We did have a meeting just the midday with Marisa, and she was good with these modifications to add the curbing in this area.
Questions? Comments?
I can go to the grading plan. Need be.
I'm sorry. Are you done, Adam?
Yeah, I just said I can switch over to the grading plan if anyone had any specific questions on
Okay. Are we good, board?
the grading.
Okay. Number 6, shade trees.
Following our last meeting, we coordinated with the USDA, Jake Borgerson, who's a wildlife biologist, and he wrote us a letter. We just summarized his comments here, and I'll read them for you. The BTV Wildlife Hazard Management Plan's overall initiative is to reduce wildlife habitat to the extent possible, both on the air operations area, AOA, and within close proximity to the AOA or on airfield property. With that said, this area historically represents challenges toward mitigation of wildlife hazards to aviation on the field. A neighboring wetland coupled with the approach and departure of BTV's main runway 1533 puts additional aviation strike risks to the aircraft. This proposed location is also within direct proximity to BTV's perimeter fence. Observational and survey data shows that large solitary trees nearest the AOA provides perching and roosting opportunities for species such as birds of prey. Historically, birds of prey present one of the most significant wildlife strike hazards to aircraft operating on or in the vicinity of BTV as well as nationally. Yet another goal of the Wildlife Hazard Management Plan is to avoid such habitat elements and attractions for these and other bird and wildlife species. It has also been a primary focus during construction and development projects on airfield property to perform due diligence on better improving the inherent safety risk that wildlife presents to aircraft. One of the foundational elements toward mitigating wildlife hazards to aircraft is through habitat management. And for this reason, I would prefer we avoid planting the proposed trees at this location. That was from Jake on June 13th.
Thank you. So do we have an option, given that response, Marla and Marty, to cut them some slack on this?
I would say that you could probably find a path forward if you felt like that was a compelling argument in this location.
What's our authority for a path forward?
I think the board's authority, well, as we talked about earlier, the board has the authority to waive dimensional standards in the cases.
I'm sorry, I can't
Sorry.
understand you.
Yep, I'm sort of muttering because I'm making it up as I go along. The board's authority in the case of a site plan is dimensional standards.
Not landscaping, right?
And I think that if the board wants to accept that argument,
That's a separate.
oh wait.
Yeah.
In the intro to the landscaping section, in some situations, I'm reading, in some situations it may be necessary both for surveillance purposes and for the perception of safety to install the size and type of plants that leave visual access between the parking lot to the public way or other areas. That isn't exactly it. I think you can work on it. I don't think we need to beat it to death in this session.
Okay, good.
I have a question. How about planting along the roadway, along Davinci, as opposed to right on the site in question? Would it be possible to plant maybe ornamentals instead of deciduous, which are a little less likely? I'm just thinking to get something because it's a pretty stark contrast now when you drive through Beta and what they've done and the trees that they've put in very close to this site. And then, boom, you're right into this area where it's a very industrial. It's kind of been the idea is to try and soften it up a little bit. So if you got the trees more on Davinci, would that be far enough away?
I think the board's already dealt with this with prior meeting when Beta moved the trees away from the airfield and put them along Davinci, and there's a nice row of trees. Can we offer to put we're moving forward with the landscaping plan. Can we contribute it to that, to the rec path that we're doing with other projects? Can we put it towards that?
So Marla, I think we're proposing to quantify that value and put it towards off-site landscaping.
I mean, that's not my decision. That's the board's decision. The standard is not about value. The standard is about providing a pleasant appearance and shade along parking lot.
What I understood the explanation to be was that the shade trees presented a hazard, but I also picked up the adjective large. So what is large? How is a 20-foot tree really a hazard to aviation, for example?
If it's providing roosting habitat for birds.
Yeah,
of
we
prey.
did specify 2 small trees that we tried to put as far away from the apron and outside of this overhead wire line as well. And that's what the USDA came back with after reviewing that plan, with just showing 2 trees there. They did not recommend it. It's kind of counterintuitive to what their goals are on the airport in general. They're trying to do the opposite right now. So
Hey, Adam, we only have like a television monitor that we're looking at your plan on. If you want to show us some trees, can you zoom in? Some of us are like 20 feet away.
Yep, understood. So it's where my cursor is now. I'll just draw in some circles real quick on what we had sketched in there and sent over to the USDA for comment on, and that in the response that was received. So
did you say 2 trees? 2?
Correct.
But that's kind of what I was getting at. Is my recollection from when I drove through is that once you get to that portion of Davinci, that there's really no tree cover. So if you kept to ornamentals, smaller trees, you might be able to do the whole thing right there. And I assume that's in the city's right of way, so the city would just have to approve it. But it would be a way to beautify the site without getting as close to the fence, and you wouldn't have to put up large trees, which would tend to attract.
Are you talking about across the road near the wetland where Beta strategically planted nice trees at even spacing all along that already?
Even right across from that, I must have missed them, and that's
There's
certainly possible.
Nice trees up there, yeah.
So
Okay.
there's trees along the far side of the road. Adam, sorry, this is really weird having someone else run the screen. Can you kind of run your cursor over where Davinci Drive is in this plan?
Yeah, Davinci Drive is right here. There
Is that
are
the center
trees.
line?
This is center line, correct.
So Davinci Drive is sort of centered on that line, and there are trees on the bottom of that plan
Down
south
here.
of that, but not on the plan north of that line.
But then I think the north side is mostly pretty steep slope, isn't it?
Steep slope and closer to the airfield, and that's what Jake's talking about. So
Yep, it's steep slope until it gets to right about here. And that's where we proposed our trees. It's right at the bottom of the steep slope and before you get under the power lines. So we tried to put the 2 trees that were in this location, and that's what we tried to get approval from USDA, but they did not recommend including them. So we removed them.
I'm sorry, who's Jake?
He's the USDA representative.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Sorry.
And we can include his letter too.
Yep.
You did?
Yep, we can submit the letter. I
Okay,
just read the
thanks.
comments and it was in our cover letter.
Well, what do you
response.
say specifically to the smaller ornamental trees?
That is what we proposed. The trees we're proposing were not like that large of trees. They were similar to, I forget what caliper they were, but they were 2 caliper tree. They were a smaller maple, like an ornamental maple, but
So what they're saying is they proposed those to USDA, and USDA said, we don't recommend it. Not that they are proposing them now.
and it's not a height thing as it relates to being in the way of any kind of aviation, but it's more of it provides a roosting ground for certain types
Right.
of species.
Right.
That's the issue. Whether they're 20-foot high trees or 60-foot high trees, it's still
Right.
a roosting area.
Attracts birds of prey.
Yeah.
Right. I think safety is really important. So if there's any way we can, I mean, beauty's important too, but safety, I think it trumps beauty.
Sorry.
So if we can find a way around that, and you think we can, Marla?
Yes, I don't think I can answer on the fly, but I think
Okay.
that you
All
should
right.
be able to figure it out.
Let's move on to number 7. This is regarding snow storage.
We have updated the proposed snow storage areas that are in locations that are either flat or in depressed areas that are lower than the proposed pavement areas, and that's shown on the revised SPO1. If you wanted to bring that up, Adam, we can show them the updates.
Yep. And we can look at I'll do it at a zoomed out version and we can zoom in if need be. But the areas we showed were pretty flat. We just narrowed them down a little bit because there's some slope associated with them. But this area got narrowed down a little bit because it's right now this line is at the toe of slope for the road coming down. So we still have this relatively large triangular section for snow storage. This area is extremely flat, slightly depressed from the road. And then same thing on this side. This side, the slope comes down because we're raising this up to make this connection of this road. And then the Davinci Drive grading comes down to about this point. So this area is still actually like an ideal spot to put snow storage because it's kind of a natural depressed area. And then we're providing drainage features for it. So when the snow does melt, it won't cause erosion either. So
Yeah. Okay.
we didn't make that big of changes, to be just completely clear. We just kind of narrowed things down a little bit.
Okay. I think we're good on that. In the interest of time,
Okay.
I think we're going to move on. The next question is regarding compensating for the tree removal. So we're back to trees. is this the same area that we just talked about? The same area?
They're proposing to remove 4 trees from along the front of the building. And they're saying, so this project doesn't require any landscaping other than for the parking lot. So they were trying to ask that the shrubs and ornamental grasses be considered adequate compensation for the removed trees.
And so the question is, do we, the board, believe that's true? I don't have a big problem with it. What do the rest of you think?
I'm okay.
Okay. Can we move on? Doesn't sound like anyone has a stern. Okay, number 9. We know we're going to need to continue the hearing to allow for the responses to the stormwater section comments. So let's move on to the next one.
Dawn, I just wanted to touch base regarding that. We were able to meet with Marisa and walk through these comments today and provided updated models and plans accordingly.
Okay, good. Thanks. So we'll see those. When will we see those?
So they submitted that stuff to us late in the day today, so we'll take a look at it and talk with the stormwater section and make sure everything that was a comment has been addressed and they haven't brought up any new things with their changes.
Great, thank you. Okay, this is about screening and screening of the transformer and the generator. What are your responses to this question?
We can bring up the revised landscaping plan, LL02, where we included more plantings around the transformer and the generator to better screen them. Are you able to zoom in on that, Adam?
Things are going very slowly. I am. It's just taking a second.
Why don't we bring it up? Okay, so we're gonna kick off Adam from presenting.
Sure. Okay.
Marty, you ready? Yeah. Okay. Marty's got it. Yeah.
Are these the latest plans that were provided today? I guess that's my biggest question.
Yes.
Because we did.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Oh, I thought you were ready. Oh man, killing me.
I can verbally describe it a little bit. We shifted the transformer over a little bit to make room for a line of shrubs between the sidewalk and the transformer. And then I think we have pretty good news on the generator, at least from a screening perspective. We did get confirmation just today from the code enforcement officer that the generator will not be required because of the power outage reports that were provided. But we still want to make sure we're covered for it just in case. But there's a pretty good chance the generator is going to get removed from the project.
Okay, good, thank you. And I think that's it. So we know we're going to need to continue this. Are we talking about July 2nd or no?
No, we are pretty full for the next couple meetings. And we sort of had half a space on July 2nd, but I'm just thinking, because if we're full for the next couple meetings, which puts them on August 6th, which kind of stinks. So I'm trying to think if there's another alternative to get this going. The board wants them to propose something different for the sidewalk, and I'm reluctant for the board to, unless the applicant is prepared to propose something right now. I mean, that they can describe in sufficient detail that we could all imagine what it would look like. I think the board really does need to continue because if the board takes responsibility for specifying what the applicant will do and then somebody does get hurt, then it comes back to the city for a liability issue. And we don't need that.
It sounds like it's pretty unrealistic that you can provide us with that level of detail tonight. Am I correct?
Quick question. You said
Well-
half opening on the July 2nd.
Which they kind of used up for the previous application. We had sort of like half a space, and they continued the previous application. Yeah, we should powwow about continuation dates before the meeting. Make that a habit, maybe.
Did someone start to say something?
Well, I was just gonna,
on the screen.
yeah, I was just gonna say, if we can demonstrate, if we slide the walkway over so that it's out of the truck turning template and propose that it is a raised sidewalk, I guess I need to ask the airport and the school district if that's acceptable to them first, but if that's acceptable, then, I forgot.
Oh, I
I'm
have an
not sure.
idea. I have an idea. Reconsideration. So, Adam says what he just said. We're going to move it over. We're going to raise it. He says this is sort of a trust and verify in the opposite direction. The board says, okay, great. We're going to close it. We're going to write the decision. Adam goes back and talks to them and he says, oh crap, I just found out new information. The new information is the school district and the airport won't accept my proposal. Can you please reopen? The reopening needs to be warned. We haven't released the warning for August 6th. So we could, you got to move real fast if you're going to do this, Adam, because we have a bunch of applications in that are kind of chomping at the bit for all the spots through August. So if you request reconsideration, we can get it in the warning for August 6th.
When do you need that information by, Marla?
Well, the warning date is 2 weeks from last Friday, which is not a helpful thing to say. The 28th.
Next Friday?
It'd be next Friday, the 28th. But then, it's also first come, first serve. So if I get like 3 more applications in the next couple days, we are anticipating that the next 3 meetings will definitely fill up with all the people that we have talked to already. Whether everyone delivers or not, remains to be seen. So that is one option. Or you could say, we'll take August 6th right now and not close the meeting. So the advantage of closing is if the airport and the school district are good with this, then you get a decision sooner. You can't get a decision if it's continued until after the continued meeting date.
I think we have the decision makers here. That's why I was just kind of curious what Marty and Larry's thoughts were on sliding the fence over and going with a concrete sidewalk with a curb.
Can I ask a clarifying question to that for Adam?
Yep.
You mentioned the light poles. I can't remember. Are they light poles or light bollards? Can they be between the sidewalk and the parking lot? Like, do we need to move them? Or can they be on
that was my intent. My intent would be that we would have that separate.
You froze. We didn't hear you.
Contemplating.
Your intent would be?
The intent would be to put the sidewalk on the page of the there.
I'm sorry. You froze again. The intent would be, and it's a cliffhanger. So try one more time. The intent. So don't you say the intent would be. I'll say that, and then you finish the sentence. The intent would be.
Yeah, I turned off my video. Maybe that'll help. The intent would be to put the sidewalk on the opposite side of the light poles. That would produce a buffer, a visual buffer, a grass, a tree long area, whatever you want to call it, that also has the light pole exposed foundations that are up a few feet off the ground. That would also provide a visual barrier and a separation between the pavement and the walkway. And we relocate the fence over, I'll just hypothetically say 8 to 10 feet to the left of the plan. And we have our walkway down that side. Is that something that is acceptable to the board?
Can you describe, are you saying with a curb or with bollards or neither?
I'm kind of brainstorming out loud right now, to be
Okay.
honest. I'm thinking if it's enough of a separation, I don't think we would want a curb. I think we would just have it be a 3-foot-ish lawn area that would be the home of the 3 light poles, as well as just a buffer between the two. So the sidewalk could be raised up a little bit, but I wasn't thinking like a 6-inch vertical curb or anything like that.
Yep.
All right, now that's just the blue area. How about curbing the rest of the way down?
So that would, I don't know what you're referring to with the blue area. That would just be the walkway that would get you to the turn that then sends you over to the bus drop off in the parking area.
I can't follow. I need the diagram to see it.
All right. So, would it make sense to just continue this at this point?
Well, we're so close. I mean,
I want to try to stress the importance too that we are trying to get this project out to bid.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
So
we're trying to get kids moved in by next August, September.
right.
correct. Whoever's doodling on there, that's what we're talking
Okay.
about. So the first stretch down to where the security gate is would be a new sidewalk that would be separated as shown. That would be have a separation, but then once you make that kind of 90-degree turn to the left, that's a roadway. We wouldn't intend for that to be raised. I mean, you're going along a fence, and that fence has to be opened by airport security personnel. So there's no active drivers that are crossing that or doing anything without getting out of their vehicle and opening that gate. So there would be nothing there. And then the remainder of that stretch could be for the bus drop-off area. It could be a raised sidewalk if we want to go that route. It is sloping down from there, so it's kind of counterintuitive with the grading. But like I said, we could make it work engineering-wise, but that would kind of also eliminate the snow storage area. But I think we have enough snow storage. But that's kind of my thought process here.
Okay. Questions from the board? You're good, Charlie, Mark? Okay, Frank?
Yeah.
Quinn? Okay, great. Thank you for spelling that out for us.
And then on the stormwater, we're gonna do the same thing we usually do: trust and verify.
Right.
Okay.
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 So
Good work,
we are
guys.
closing.
Sounds it.
Okay.
Are you guys good with that? You feel comfortable?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
We need to pause and ask for public comment. Are there any members of the public who would like to comment? Okay. I would entertain a motion to close this hearing.
Make a motion, we close SB 2420, 200 Davinci Drive.
Second. Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? No? The motion is carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, we do. Okay. The next one. Hold on. I'm having trouble finding this. Master plan. Bear with me, please. Okay. All right. Thank you. Sorry about that. Okay, master plan application MP 2402 of Burlington School District to amend a previously approved master plan for a 344 square foot manufacturing and office building, a 37,800 square foot office and retail building, a 15,600 square foot commercial building, and an 85,000 square foot flight instruction and airport use building on 40.43 acres. The amendment consists of modifying the access and circulation to an adjacent existing hangar at 154 Davinci Drive. Okay, same group? Okay. I'm sorry?
I'm here too from Beta, Alex Gagnon.
Alex? Okay, thank you. Let's swear you all in. Is there anyone who's conflicted or needs to? Okay, all right. Swear you in. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury?
I do.
I do.
Thank you. Okay. Let's dive into the staff report. Do you have any comments to make before we do that? Brief comments? No. Okay, good. Comment number 1. Marla, I need you to explain this, please. I wasn't quite sure I understood it.
Yeah, so actually I'm going to explain something else first. The Planning Commission is contemplating amendments to the LDR that will clean up our somewhat confusing master plan requirements without largely changing them. It is changing some of the PUD requirements quite a bit, but I think that this will be less confusing the next time you hear this sort of application. This is what is considered a minor amendment to a master plan. That is defined in the LDR, and then it stops talking about it. And it doesn't say that there's different submission requirements or there's different process or anything. The submission requirements are to establish a master plan. You know, all the background, what's the context, what's the purpose, what's the future plan. Staff considers that not a lot of background is needed for a minor amendment because we're not proposing to change anything. And so we just wanted to affirm that you were okay with the level of detail in the background stuff that they have provided for this application.
I hear heads nodding. Is anyone not okay with that? Okay, good. Thank you, Marla. Let's move on. Number 2, this is regarding phasing, and staff recommends the board include a condition modifying the approved phasing to require the removal of those elements as part of the orange phase, consisting of the second half of the manufacturing building. Do you have any comments to make about this?
No,
Alex, you have to use the mic.
sorry. I don't think so. This is sorry. Can you hear me? Okay.
I'm sorry, Alex, was Alex sworn in? Did you?
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
okay, right.
Yep. I was actually looking at this in the comment. There you go. In blue, and I think this was based off of our original master plan submission. So I don't know that we've got the attachment here that spells out kind of what the orange phase was, but I believe Marla that
Pull the mic.
phase 2 of the manufacturing facility. Is that right?
Better.
Yeah, so I think really what we're trying to address here is the temporary access road and the commercial building.
Marty, do you want to pull up the plan? It's in the attachment called More Plans in 7C. Just the first sheet is fine. Thanks. So this is an application for what we just discussed as a site plan, because that project is partly within the Beta Master Plan area. When the tree replacement plan for the improperly removed trees along the Beta driveway, I'm sure you remember the 30-inch and the 24-inch, it was a big deal. They included some minor modifications to their phasing, which is this, Marty, if you can highlight it with your cursor, this sort of access road along the side. And that the purpose of that access road was to access the construction site at the top of the page. The board approved that Those notes were on that plan at the time. It said this temporary access road will exist until the orange phase is constructed. And at that time, because we were relatively inexperienced with master plans, to be honest, we did not update the master plan at the same time. So here we're trying to incorporate into the master plan what the board has already approved as a site plan.
So going back to the comment number 2, staff recommends the board include a condition modifying the approved phasing to require the removal of those elements as part of the orange phase, consisting of the second half of the manufacturing building. Is that something you, the applicant, would agree to?
Yeah, we would. You'll see there's a photo there, but it would actually conflict with phase 2 of our manufacturing facility.
Okay, so any questions, board? No? Okay. Well, I think that is it for comments. Are there any members of the public who would like to comment on this? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to close. Hold on just a second. To close MP 2402.
So moved.
Second?
Charlie.
Charlie, thanks. Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No? Thank you. Okay. Minutes of June 4th. Would anyone like to move acceptance of the minutes?
Move to accept.
I'll second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? No? Okay. Other business. See, we stole your thunder earlier.
You did. No more thunder.
No other business? Okay. The meeting is over. Now the question is, do we want to stay on to deliberate or do we want to do that in 2 weeks?